Evan, I'm very happy to have you here on the podcast. Maybe you give us a short intro who you are and why I think it would be a good idea to have you on the podcast.
Sounds great. So Evan Beard, co-founder and CEO of Standard Bots. We are a robotics company that is building the hardware and the software and the AI stack to train robots in a totally new way, where you're showing them what to do using physical AI to teach them, and ultimately able to automate jobs you couldn't automate before by doing that.
We've seen a lot of a lot of the videos recently. I think this is one of the reasons why I reached out as well. I wanted to see behind the scenes and talk to people building that. Um, You guys are located on the East Coast. I think for me, it was very pleasant to understand that there's a very vibrant robotics scene happening at the moment. There's a lot of things coming, and we can talk about this later on. As the main focus or the early focus of the podcast is always trying to find out what makes a founder, what makes a person think it's a good idea. As I said earlier when we chatted, to change the 9 to 5 with the 24/7, a joke I like to do. Yeah, and please tell me where you're coming from and what were your early days and is this something that was meant to be, or yeah, maybe you give me a little bit of story.
Yeah, well, I got into robotics. I was in initially in college. I did computer science and loved building things. Initially software. It kind of felt like the clay you could craft. And in early days of software, or I think of it as early days, but I graduated in 2009. The App Store was just coming out on the iPhone, and web apps were kind of a big deal. We had Ruby on Rails was very early, and Python and Django, and so if you could build a web app and you could do it pretty quickly, it felt like a superpower. And so that was what I did in college, and it was a lot of fun. And I built all kinds of web apps, and it was sort of my nights and weekends. And and then I graduated college and I did Y Combinator. And I had written an app right out of college that it went on Good Morning America and it got a bunch of press. And so that helped to get me into Y Combinator. It was just a few months out of school. And so I go to Y Combinator with one of my friends from college, and there was a guy there building humanoid robots, and this was like 2010, and they were 8 foot tall. It's called AnyBots, I believe. It's Trevor Blackwell. He's actually one of the partners of Y Combinator, one of the founders, and these huge robots that I don't think they ever walked around, but they were in the center of the Y Combinator office. And for a few years, they were a centerpiece there. And he had a machine shop on site, and he had this team of 5 people that would come in, and they were soldering, and they were tinkering, and they had all these microcontrollers they were programming, and clearly they were having a lot of fun. And I just said, and after a couple of days of seeing this, and a week of seeing this, 2 weeks, I'm like, all right, I think this is a cheat code on life. Do they really get to do that for a living? And they're getting paid to do that? So that's when I knew I wanted to do robotics. And I took the love I had of software and just shifted it right into, like, holy cow, I should add the mechanical and electrical side of this. And Trevor was nice enough to give me some books and some guidance, and he told me he had actually self-taught, and he had studied, I believe, software and self-taught the electrical and the mechanical. And so that was the position I was in. And of course, when you're 20, you have time to learn anything. But Trevor really kind of made me feel empowered that, hey, I can build these giant humanoid robots, and just taught myself everything I needed to know, and you should go do that too.
So this is now over 15 years ago, and I mean, when you said that, because computer science, and we can talk about this a little bit later on, what kind of position, how do you see if certain things that are happening at the moment? But was there something that came naturally to you in terms of like, this is what I need to study because you were, because you had a computer very early on? Yeah, was that something that was around your house? Maybe we can spend two more minutes here, yeah, on this one.
Yeah, I distinctly remember seeing my first computer. I think it was at a computer fair, and it was in Annapolis, where I'm from. And I remember I don't know what it was. I was too young. My parents took me there, but it was a room full of computers, and they were all on display. And you could walk up to each one, and there was a salesperson who would explain it to you. And I'd go up, and he let me type on it. And uh, And I remember that was just so magical, and I kind of like begged my parents. I'm very good at getting what I want, and so just begged my parents again and again until uh until they got me a computer. And so yeah, I had a computer pretty early on. I think I was 10 or 11, which was, early Apple computer. And uh and I learned fairly early on, realized I could make websites. And so it was, I believe, fourth grade, I was making websites with a friend, and we'd come in every day and update our website, and people would check it in the school computer lab. And so that was kind of how I got my start building things.
So when was that?
That would have been, geez, I don't know what year that was. Fourth grade, graduated high school in 2005. I'd have to, so uh, I guess, it'd be like mid 90s.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because when I speak to people that then they either have like very early on, and but you were just in this transition phase, right? So where things really popping up, becoming like mainstream, accessible, and just in that spot, like growing up analog, but then being there in the transition of everything becomes digital. Yeah, exciting times. So you thought it would be then a good idea to carry this on into university, and have you been surrounded by friends with the same kind of hobby or passion, or was that something that was just you?
Yeah, friends. Friends were that's so we'd build things on weekends and nights, and sort of the same group of people I would play video games with. We got into initially making websites, and one of my friends went around our local town and offered to make websites for people, and he was able to get quite a large amount of money. I remember still, I think we were in high school, and he went, and with all the money he'd earned, he bought like a $7,000, like the top of the line Mac. And I remember it came and we unboxed it, and it was just, permanently seared in my mind. It was just one of the most fantastic moments. It wasn't even my computer, but
Yeah, I mean, collective memory. And was there something like seeing that going somewhere and applying the skill that you have? I mean, this is very early entrepreneurship, right? Is that something how you came this across and saw, okay, this is the magic. Like I have some skills, I apply them, find just people that need my skill, and then I'm able to yeah, buy this Mac.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you get that immediate feedback, right? You can create something of value, ship it to someone, they give you feedback. I think more than that, you can so clearly level up where you can learn how to do things better and make the website quicker next time, or, build the robot faster next time. And I've always been, it's like in my mind, it was gamified from day one, where I'm just going to keep leveling up, and I'm going to get faster and better at programming and be able to use more languages and teach myself to type in Dvorak, which I did, and just like try to be the absolute best I can at software. So that was my passion for many years.
The the idea of building something and being surrounded by people who would also build something is very infectious. And I think in the open discussion that is happening at the moment is why is it so different here in Europe and in the US? One of the main places is always San Francisco, but yeah, you're not necessarily coming out of San Francisco or New York where you are now. So how is that in your place?
Yeah, I spent a couple of years in San Francisco when I did Y Combinator, but now outside New York City is our factory, and we have an office in New York City. So this is our home base. I think it is important to be near one of these big city centers, because just so many people and ideas and investors are always traveling through, and I think that's really helpful. And people want to live near those kind of areas.
You were mentioning video games, and I think then I leave you off the leash to run further. But the video game part was something that I'm interested in because I follow a few VCs on X, and I see over and over again mentioning that people who spend a lot of time playing video games have you because you do this over and over again, like going through different kind of levels, communicating with friends if it's a multiplayer game, challenges that you're continuously taking on. um, uh, Is that something that you still do? This is one question. The other one is from that group of friends you were building these kind of things, are some still around?
You're saying the people that do that are better at what are the VCs saying? That's
Yeah,
really fascinating.
yeah, I mean, some. I mean, at least one I'm following is like, if they're talking to founders and found out that they have been playing video games heavily early on, this is
Yeah.
a green flag for them.
Okay. Interesting. That's so fascinating. I could obviously see that. I mean, especially these Fortnite and games like that, you have to coordinate so tightly to some of my friends say it's the new golf, so which I subscribe to that.
So do you think that this is yeah? I mean, do you see it also? And like I said, do you still have some of the friends around? This is always something I'm interested in.
Yeah, still my closest friends. Um, Still play games with them. We still build things together. Some are advisors to Standard Bots and have helped quite a bit. And actually, some of them have gone on to work in VC. So I have, my man on the inside.
Nice. When you said that you went into Y Combinator just after graduating, that is not necessarily a path the majority of people would like go to when they finish a degree. And the majority of people would say, "Okay, now I got a degree. Now I'm looking for a place where I can get earn good money with it, and then build my life, be happy." Um, yeah, why not you?
Uh, I always knew I wanted to start a company. I think, I think one of my heroes growing up was Steve Prefontaine, and his motto was to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And I had that quote on my wall the entire time I grew up. And I think that that mindset has so saturated into my being that I knew growing up that the only way, like graduating college, that I could give the most that I could ever give to the world would be starting a company. Because I just felt that I could push harder and have the perseverance needed and bring the passion that you really need to not give up and dig deeper and be better and make things happen. So there was never a question that that's what I wanted to do when I graduated.
And sorry if I'm trying to dig deeper here, but and one of the reasons why I have this podcast is showing, and people can listen and see. And this sentence, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. Like this kind of mindset or the situation where you think and feel this, I think is very, very empowering. So, and was that something that you saw, or because when you said this quote was on your wall the entire time, uh, still role models play a huge role, right? And that can be some inspirational book or movie. I think at least two or three people on the podcast telling me that they went into robotics because of Iron Man. I wanted to build something like that. I wanted to become something like that. So how was that for you? Did you have some person, some situation that did this for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Steve Prefontaine was running, and he almost made it into artwork, something that seems so far from it running. Uh, so I think for me, it was more this concept of I want to give the world everything I've got, whatever that is, and that'll be enough, but it has to be my best. In terms of robotics, it really was meeting Trevor and seeing like, initially it was my friends, teaching me how to build websites and us building together. And then during Y Combinator, it's like, holy cow, this can be robotics. And like I can go point my interest at mechanical and electrical engineering as well. And then, and so that's where I think it really turned to robotics. But ultimately, like all these things, I think it's this love of building things. And I think the founders that I've met that really stick with it and do the best are they just love the artistry of it to get into the clay of the world and be able to shape something new. So that's what gets me excited.
So you applying there, this is ages ago, right? And nowadays, more things are much more public, and people talking about this, and the new batches. Everyone has their mobile phone with them all the time. But 15 years ago, whenever that was, is totally different time, right? So maybe you are able to share a little bit about this because I think it's very exciting to see. I mean, what's happening at the moment, you can see, right? But back then, it was not covered the way it is today.
Yeah, no, it was 4 years after Y Combinator started. Paul Graham was our partner, which was amazing, incredible human. I think there were 10 or 20 companies. I think it was 10 companies, about 20 people. And it was, haven't done Y Combinator in quite a time. I know it's much bigger now, but there was just so much camaraderie and this feeling of all these people are, we're going to work pretty much every waking moment for, at the time, it was only about $20,000. And my co-founder and I, it was all the money we had. And you have to live off this for five, six, really until you raise your seed funding. So you don't know how long. And so you're going at it as hard as you can for as many hours a day. And we used to track how many hours we didn't work and the sleep we would sleep. We wouldn't count sleep, but it would be like, oh, we took an hour off work this week, like total for the whole week, not including sleep. And then like one week it was 20 minutes or something like ridiculous. And we would just work nonstop. There's something very fun about it. You can't do it forever, of course, but when you're 20 years old and you learn a lot. I mean, you're putting like years of experience on in because I think it's not just like the time, but it's like the depth and the technical depth you're able to get when you are really focused on something. And so, because like relative to how quickly the field's moving, you're going four times more time on those technologies, in that same calendar period. So that was my common experience, but highly recommend it.
Yeah, highly recommend it. I mean, first you need to get in. I haven't seen the number recently, but I think the amount of people trying to get in and people that are getting in, I think the ratio is just crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but so very little money. You're not from San Francisco, so that means you cannot sleep at your parents' couch. So and working every single waking hour, you haven't seen so much daylight, I guess. Maybe I mean just for the fun of it, maybe you can share a few of these days. How would a day look like?
We'd wake up and we'd start programming, and I think we had a Chipotle like 2 blocks away or something, which was it was like half our calories probably, and the other half was a Costco, like a little bit, further. So we would just like ride our bikes there. I don't even think we had a car at the time, and so we were just kind of like biking to Costco or Chipotle and back as a break was like go get food, and we'd be like talking and working as we're biking and like eating. And so it was just nonstop. And then Y Combinator would have, I think it was weekly, you would get together and you'd meet your partner and they would bring in speakers. And even back then it was incredible speakers like Mark Zuckerberg and it was founders that at the time you're like so looking up to because they've been to the other side of the journey. So you're kind of getting showered with advice and they're telling you about the journey and you're just, and I think the the shared camaraderie of it all was pretty incredible. And I imagine it's still like that today, but you're going after something that's really hard with the group that's sort of like, we're going to prepare you as best we can and then push you out to the world. And you're preparing for demo day and you're practicing pitching and I think Paul Graham, an incredible person, uh he would tell you exactly what he thinks at any moment, and it's kind of like I've thought about it since. It's like when your mom tells you what she thinks, you don't get offended because she's trying to help you. And that taught me so much about leadership because if you come from a place of caring, then you can just be so direct. So, early days would be like one week, it's like, hey, this company's going to fail because like you're making XYZ decision. And you're like, holy cow, that's kind of harsh. And then we'd go and like work on it for a week and change course and fix things. And then the next week he's like, all right, I think you guys could be one of the best ones in the batch. And it's like the best ones in the batch, like you just said we're gonna fail. And so, you just knew where you stood at any moment in time. And so you've kind of got this it's like very direct, but experienced feedback coming at you with this camaraderie of people that are all building and it is a whole lot of fun.
Do you have do you have photos and pictures of this?
I'm sure I do. I'll send them to you for B-roll.
I mean, it's there's so many young people out there trying to get into these programs, and I think there's such a big um, not myth because it's well documented, but I think the vibe and the everything that comes with it, as you said, riding the bike for food, exchanging with other ones. I think this is one of the main reasons why this area is so vibrant because I have a little one now, and I can see on a very small scale that what I'm trying to teach her and what I'm trying to cheer her up. For example, like just a little jump, right? You can do this, you can do this. And now talking to founders very often, I'm thinking about it's so funny that like I'm cheering up for the smallest little things, right? To trying to get her this self-esteem and this little push necessary to do it, and the confidence of there is someone catching you, and also the confidence of I believe in you and you can do it, right? And then you grow up, and then you have a lot of people. I mean, with the different reasons, but not cheering you up, not standing on the sideline and says you can do it. The majority of people would have called you crazy, like after the degree, applying and trying to build a startup versus getting a good, well-paid job and build a nice uh, CV and getting a nice house and family and these kind of things. So it's I think very yeah, I think for me, this little side quests and my questions regarding that time, I think was very insightful. So thanks for sharing.
For sure.
Um, but you guys, yeah, I mean, what was the end result of that batch?
We sold the company to Salesforce. It was a talent acquisition. Worked there for a year, and then I was a free agent again.
Are you able to disclose for how much you sold it for?
Yeah, I think NDA is expired now. It's like $6-ish million.
Nice. How old were you back then?
I think it was 22, 23, something like that. It was enough to pay off. I had told my parents that they wanted me to go to a cheaper college. And I said, I'll go to Duke. I'm gonna pay for it. And they're like, okay, sure. And they like took the loan out. So like they had to sign for the loan and everything. But they're like, yeah, whatever, like fine, you'll pay for it and you can go there. And then I paid for it like a year out of school. And I was so proud of that. So
Crazy. This is crazy. Yeah, respect to that. I think this is a huge accomplishment. So free agent again. So what do? Do you feel lost?
so at that point I was in Los Angeles and Ashton Kutcher had invested in our company through Demo Day of Y Combinator. It was actually I think we were his first tech investment ever when he came to Demo Day. And and so I was with my fiance at the time and I said, "Hey, I think I can call Ashton and he'll pick up." And so we called him and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come over and talk?" He had a startup idea. And I told him I was looking for an idea. And so we started a media business together. I actually went to Sundance for the Steve Jobs premiere and talked about it and ended up starting a media business. And so worked on that for didn't end up being a big company, but tremendous respect for him, learned a lot. And it was a stepping stone really to, during that time, I'm kind of like on the nights and weekends, I'm soldering and I'm building, haven't lost my passion for robotics. And I kind of thought in my head, like, this is an incredible opportunity to learn from this person and work with this person, but I know I want to get back to robotics. So I was pushing hard. I was taking MIT electrical engineering courses at nights and, and I'm like going to the maker spaces and asking people like, what are you using to design those parts? And like downloading SolidWorks and taking, watching videos to learn how to use SolidWorks. And so I'm kind of doing that on the side. Uh, and we ended up selling that company for a small amount. It wasn't a big exit. And then was on to robotics at that point.
So I mean, tell me what is the year?
It was about 2016,
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Just like that. I mean, being in this kind of situation, working, and improving and upscaling also. Uh, do you realize? I mean, because I remember when I was working like these kind of hours, I lost track of time because Monday is like Monday, and like February is like March is like June, and then it's September, and your brain has nothing to hold on because every single day looks exactly the same. And then people starting to from work, people starting appearing in my dreams. So I knew, okay, I think like above 300 hours a month. So how do you make plans? How do you do anything? It
Oh,
just
sounds like you know about it. So,
yeah. I mean, different
uh,
kind of jobs though, but still.
calendar's defined by the product milestones now, not the days, weeks, or months. Yeah, so 2016 really started as a like, hey, we're not going to raise outside capital. We're going to just go deep on this and try to, it was me and recruited two people. And one of them was actually one of these childhood friends that I was telling you about originally. And
Nice.
we're just going to go deep on robotics and try to build things. And you can play the B-roll here. But we built self-balancing robot that would you could control it with an Xbox controller and it go through the house. And we built grippers and we tried to build a plastic arm. Like, hey, could we build plastic gearing and a plastic arm? And would that work out? And running the FEA on that. And then we build a carbon fiber arm. I'm like, okay, we got to make some of the parts aluminum, and then maybe we can make the rest carbon fiber. Can we make the arm like an order of magnitude cheaper than any of these competitors that are out there? Uh, and so there was a lot of just building and exploration, and the wires were external at first, and it was a mess, but it was a really fun period, and we made a lot of progress, built a lot of prototypes, and during that period, I hired a someone from one of these websites like Upwork, and I think she was $6 an hour in the Philippines. And I just asked her, hey, can you email people who use robots? Like just try to find them on the internet and put calls on my calendar. And she set up over 100 calls in a few months with users of robotic arms. And so I spoke to 100 potential customers, and I was just, most of the time I'm programming and we're doing CAD and building different prototypes. And in the intervening time, I'm on the phone with customers and I'm asking them, do you like your robots? Like, what do you not like? How do you program them? Can you send me pictures of the program? What can you automate? What can't you automate? How come you're not automating that? Like, how many employees do you have? And why don't you automate what those people are doing? And just absorbing. And so I did that for many months and realized the same thing from all of these interviews, which was uh, most people wanted to automate things the robots just couldn't automate. And that was again and again that would come up. And then also it came up that the price was too high. And it came up that the programming was so confusing that they often had to hire third parties to come and set them up and program them and keep them running. And then when I looked at the interfaces, I thought, my God, this is just terrible. Like it's literally, and we'll cue the B-roll for our competitors. This is Fanuc, Universal Robots, and these interfaces. It can be for any kind of real program. You're like it's hundreds of these like little symbols, and you really have to click through each symbol to gather all the state to know what the program's doing. So it breaks 30 years of software best practice are just thrown to the wind here in these competitor robot interfaces. And we just realized we can be 10x better. And you don't want to be 30% better or 20% better when you're starting a company. You want it to be 10x better. And we said, okay, we could be 10x better. Along with we're going to figure out how to use AI to automate all these other jobs that just, these people want to automate.
There's a few things I would like to add and also ask uh, regarding the. I mean, what you're doing is actually this kind of analysis or market analysis, or really trying to get to the bottom of the problem, talking to potential customer. Or to, yeah, is there something that came out of as a conclusion of your curiosity exploring the field, or was that something that has been taught to you on Y Combinator?
Thought from Y Combinator.
Uh, because it is, I mean, especially in robotics, I think I'm working in that field now for a couple of years, and the majority of people spending, uh, years, right? So you do your bachelor's, you do your master's, you do PhD, so you're 10, 15 years into the field, right? So getting out of academia and getting and becoming an entrepreneur, you totally, not totally, but you lack this sense of there needs to be a problem first, and then we see what kind of technology is necessary versus I work on a technology that is sexy, that is cool, that is this is what I do, right? And now let's see if I can find a customer
Yeah.
who needs that, right? So I really like that approach first. The other thing is the the calendar thing. I think this is something that is quite funny actually. Just get me people on the phone, and yeah, like I said earlier, having this podcast is like it's that easy. It's, I mean, it's no, sorry, it's that simple. It's not easy because you still need to find the numbers, you still need to do the cold calling, but it is simple yeah. If you just look at the paper, right, it's very simple, but it's very hard to do because the majority of people don't want to talk to some random people and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Nope, don't need it. I have one. So,
Yeah. Because people were so unhappy with their current robots that when they received an email saying, "Hey, we're trying to start a new kind of robot company. Would you talk to us and give us some feedback?" They're like, "Yes, that's what we need." Is like the current product suck. So like we're happy to get on the phone. So I think that's part of why that worked.
mm.
There's a lot of fields where people get so many emails and if you're just going to ignore it. But we were able to get so many people on the phone this way for such a low cost per call. Uh, I think, yeah.
The other thing was, I mean, I've worked for companies trying to be very agnostic to these kind of things, trying to be middle layer whatsoever, and so they needed to get to the bottom of those. I don't want to call them ancient, but ancient software products or interfaces and architecture. The disadvantage that you have as these, if you're these kind of companies, there's some robots out in the field for 10 years, 15 years, and you still need to be able to serve them. You still need to be able to maintain them. So getting rid of all of that and just coming up with a new version will make a lot of your former customers or your customer clients very unhappy because you still need to serve them. You have the advantage of being in new startups. You don't care. You don't need to care. But so this is one of the things that it's not that easy. Even if you would like to change that very easily, you can't, right?
Yeah, this is one of the shocking things I learned is the FANUC integrators, they memorize the FANUC interface and they don't want it to change. So it's a badge of honor that they know how to use it for how confusing it is. And so they
Mm,
leave it just like it is because that's what all these customers want. And I think it's innovator's dilemma in a way, right? Because it's
mm.
like they were to create an intuitive product, it would just totally upset all these like really loyal users that have been with them for decades. And it's a badge of honor. You go to the course, you take a multi-week course, you know how to do the most basic thing on something like FANUC. And it's if you're not in the field, I mean, the first time you learn this, it's like, what? Like, and and the user, so they've got like random letters and brackets that don't close, and it's just wild stuff. So
So back then, because we are still at 2016, right?
yeah, so the first few years were that kind of R&D exploration and talking to customers and really honing in on, okay, this is exactly what we're going to build and realizing what we could build. Okay, can we make the robot more affordable? Where are we going to innovate? Like what can we do from an AI perspective to be able to automate these jobs other people can't automate? Is it enough to just use AI to find where the objects are? Is that enough to like really add enough value, or do we need to do something a bit more? So it was trying to figure out answer all those questions and hone in on the product. And I would say, uh, and we made a number of iterations on joints and grippers and force torque sensors, and we actually made a custom camera module, and all these different things. And really wanted to get to be deeply technical CEO and to have a almost like a self-taught PhD in what I thought would be directly relevant to the problem I'm trying to solve. And uh, and part of that came from I actually also talked to like the Rethink robotics team. And Rethink was a company that I think largely suffered from and for those that don't know, it was one of the original robot arms, even before Universal Robots, right? They came out and they were red and They used series elastic actuators, which was a patent that, and so they had these effectively a spring between every joint for safety purposes, but they were kind of the original collaborative arm that American made. And and I think what happened to the company was typical subsystem optimization because they didn't have strong technical leadership at the top of the company. And so they weren't able to make the right technical decisions, I believe. And this is an opinion I formed from talking to 15 plus former employees, all the way board, all the way down to the person that answered the phone at the company and like, fielded the leads, head of sales, firmware engineers, software engineers. And and so I realized if I want to start a robotics company, I cannot be making decisions without deep technical depth and knowledge to be able to guide the ship and make sure that we're going in the right direction. And there can't be any uh, I have to speak the language. And I could kind of see that in the software world, right? Like I could see so clearly as a software engineer that if you didn't really know what you're doing, it would be very hard to build a complicated software product and like guide the team and know who to hire and know if they're doing a good job.
Mm.
And like there's so many decisions. Like, did you buy it or do you build it? How long is that going to take? Is it taking longer than expected? Is that because the team's like not doing a good job, or is that because things came up that we couldn't predict? And if you can't discern and if you can't answer those questions, then it can be very hard to managerially make the right decisions. So that period of time was me getting this kind of like self-taught, what I thought of as a PhD in robotics and like really going deep. And then in about 2020, we said, okay, we know what we're going to do. We've prototyped it enough. We had a working robot that we thought was ready to do some like customer trials. We said, okay, now we're ready to raise capital. So we went out and we raised the seed round.
Getting through this first phase is very hard because, I mean, you've been an experienced founder. I think this helps. But as you said, what I'm focusing first on, right? What is the core problem that I need to solve to build a solution for the problem of my customer, right?
Mhm.
And if you're putting together a team, everyone who is getting hired would like to do a good job. So they have on focus their own saying like I need to provide value, I need to show that I'm capable of, but that not necessarily fits into the timeline, and that not necessarily fits into where where the company is at any certain stage, right? So you need to integrate yourself and see, maybe you need to support someone else because that part is very important at this stage where we are, versus I need to come up and show that I do have an agenda that I can apply and that I'm worth my money, right? So figuring out this is very hard. Uh, but raising then money brings new problems to you. How were you able to guide the ship through that course?
Yeah. Well, I should say we raised a little bit of friends and family earlier, but this was first real funding round. It was, we've had a number of harrowing moments, but we knew we wanted to get the robot working to have some like really great demos of the new product before we raised the money. So we, uh, it was a race we kind of like the money we had set aside and the money from my former acquisition was dwindling. And I think we were 3 weeks away from I'm at personal cash out when we raised the seed round for Standard Bots. So it's like right at the very end of like I don't have any more resource I can gather. I've spent, every dime I can on this, and 3 weeks to go, and then we raised our seed round. And actually, the way it worked was we weren't even trying to raise because we wanted to get it to work. So as soon as the product started working, I had seed investors in the door. We raised it in 3 days. But it was only 3 weeks left, and we wanted to get the valuation that we felt we deserved for this prototype working. And so hit that, and then COVID came like a month later. And so it was timing wise, it was in some ways fortuitous because I think it became harder to raise money right at the beginning of COVID when there's so much uncertainty. In other ways, it became very hard because no longer could the team travel quite so freely. Supply chain shut down. There was an enormous chip shortage at the time. So and by the way, we made our own motor controllers. We make our own, designed our own motors. We were on a very low level of, so the boards that do all the motor control, we were, we had designed, so we had to get all the chips for that. And, and the boards for the main computer, um, the control board, that does all the ISO 100218-1 like safety standards and the e-stops, and there's chips on all that, and so all of a sudden you couldn't get chips anymore. And so we'd order boards from, like these quick turn shops, and there'd be no chips. And so like you'd be like, all right, so what we'd have to keep redesigning the board because like the chip was out of stock. So it's like, all right, find a different chip that we can like redesign to. And then we had to start massing chips where we would keep all the chips in our facility and store them. You have to store them in a certain humidity and, humidity and temperature control and all these kind of things. Uh, and we ended up at the time, and it became such like a slow drag on us to not have chips and not, we ended up, I just personally bought a circuit board line and said, we're going to we got my Cropsy machine, kind of like a top of the line pick and place machine, and really like completely top of the line full circuit board, like 45 feet long, and just said we're going to learn how to use this and we're going to build these boards ourselves because I'm not waiting on these board houses anymore. And we just masked all the chips ourselves and we just kept going with that. And that was when I really learned electrical engineering because our electrical engineer at the time was in another city that had a complete lockdown. He was in the UK, and the UK had you weren't allowed to travel at all. And so I was on the phone with him, and we had a moment where our motor controller, the FETs, would unceremoniously disassemble themselves. And when they did it, they would shoot off into the ceiling and make a loud noise, and the magic smoke would come out, which if everyone knows, then the board doesn't work when the magic smoke comes out. So this would happen, and like the electrical engineer wasn't there to help debug it. So he would for like weeks, he walked me through debugging this and had oscilloscopes on like the little, on each of the little the gate driver inputs and outputs. And we're like, and that was what I really went deep on electrical engineering and felt like I earned my stripes there. But that was how we got through the first part of COVID there and buying our own board line, massing chips and remote, Google Meets electrical engineering.
I think you should have recorded all this and put it into a course, and you could have make a bunch of money then. Uh, uh, how big was the team back then?
Uh, I think we were like 5 people, 10 people, somewhere in that range. So we still,
How many people are you today?
we're over 100 right now.
Hmm,
Yeah.
quite a long way. What was the first application that you guys sold?
First customer was it was a company that makes parts for the Long Island Railroad, which is the train here in New York. And they also make parts for nuclear plants. And I think it was like, Amtrak, like things like that. And they would make these big connectors to connect these really thick wires to transmit the power. And so the robot originally was loading and unloading a lathe to make those parts. And it was this was another pretty critical moment. It was our first customer. We had uh our yeah, there was some debate on the team. Like it taken a minute to get to that point, and finally we had everything working well enough to deploy it. And we one of the things that made it really hard in the beginning was we held off to make a platform. Like we could have hard coded, written some logic to just do his work, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make a generic programming editor so that you could program in it his job, and we also had like 10 other jobs in mind. We're like, we need it to be generic enough where it can do all 10 of these things, not just his job. Because one of our early beliefs was if we make it too specific just to this one job, it's going to be like really hard to step back and generalize it. Because, so now you have like a specific UI for one specific job. You don't have a platform. And we had this belief from the beginning, the value will accrue to the platform. And so we took a little longer here, obviously to make the hardware from scratch and our own motor controllers and design our own motors, but also to make the software a platform. We're very stubborn about the approach here. And so we finally get the platform ready. We go and deploy this thing, and we didn't have a Haas CNC mill, and it needed to integrate with the Haas because the robot in the Haas, and if for those that don't know, Haas is one of the most popular brands of CNC mill. But if you don't have one, there's no way to test your API connection or anything like that. And so we we wrote the driver or the way to talk to the Haas on the customer site. So I actually drove over myself and wrote the driver to talk to the Haas and like while we're there for the first. And I told him it's going to take 2 weeks to install this robot. But really like a week and a half was like writing the Haas driver on their site. So we got that deployed, and believe it or not, it is still running. It's been a few years now, and they're a happy customer.
I think he applies the like do the things that don't scale, and I've seen a few startups trying to focus and say I don't want to be too kind. And I mean it's a thin line. How much do you customize for each and every single customer? But what I've seen so far is that if you make a few first customer very happy and do customize everything, right? But trying to keep in mind that you cannot do this on like longer, like on the long term, but making these few customers happy and exploring if there is an opportunity to expand within the account, and really giving a solution that is a turnkey solution, even though it does not necessarily belong to your product. Because this is what I see with some companies doing. Like this is our product, and we don't do the we don't do the periphery, so we don't do the other things. Versus I'm a customer and I don't want to have like 10 people talking to. I would just like have a solution that works, right? So putting on that burden on you, even though you have very limited cash, very limited resources, a different kind of resources, right? Like really making a few customers really happy, and things will go much, much easier, especially if you start raising money.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally agree with that. You've got to make the folks happy. I don't think we've ever done anything specific for a customer though. We only build things that, lots of customers would want, including those Haas drivers, reusable by so many other
mm.
customers. That's been something we try to, like if it's something that a specific customer will need, we always think, how do we make this even if it's slower, how do we make it generic so this is usable by a lot of people and it puts a big drag at first, but then as you go, it becomes now you've got all these tools that we've got hundreds of different use cases on our robot. So it's worked out to do it that way.
So where are you guys now? So what kind of situation you guys are in?
If you annualize December, 24 million run rate of revenue. We have, we're in the hundreds of customers. I think by the end of the year, we'll be in the thousands of robots. We're grow 12x year on year. So I think we might be potentially the fastest growing robotics company by revenue and deployments in North America, in terms of like robotic arms. We invited testify to Congress a couple weeks ago and did that. We've got some really big things going on with the government right now, and a lot of support from the government right now because they recognize we have to bring back manufacturing. It's so important to the United States. I think it's important in Europe too, but really the only way to do it as a developed country is you have to automate. And so I think, it's gone from those early days to now we find ourselves, uh, we're like, getting so much attention and support. And suddenly robotics has turned from a couple of years ago is like, people don't like hardware, sorry. And now it's become one of the hottest things. And it's like, okay, well, actually software is kind of commoditized. And that's something we knew from the beginning that don't really want to be doing something that Google can just clone overnight. And I think it took investors a minute, but they've now caught up to that. You see all the SaaS companies trading down on the public markets effectively because you could rebuild them with Claude, right? So that's where we are today, and hopefully just getting started here.
I mean, funny that you say cloud because earlier on when you said that, you started computer science, and I read and every now and then a few articles about people who are very good at this, and now seeing what you can do with Cloud Code, for example, and then seeing, oof, this is a bittersweet moment because on one hand, I like trying to do this for 20 plus years and trying to become very, very good at it. And people paid me for that and respect me for that. And I did a lot of things that moved the industry forward. And now this is not so special anymore. But on the other side, it makes my life easier as well. So,
I think it's a tool, and if you're passionate about your craft, you're learning that tool right now, and you're getting to be the best at that tool. And I mean, can you imagine? Like, of course, you want to hire people that are amazing at using Claude Code and can run a couple agents at once and are just like, it becomes a superpower. So I think if you're passionate for the craft, it's only exciting to have new tools like this, and you just, you know, that becomes your new paintbrush, and that's fine.
hmm. Interesting way of saying of seeing that. I would like to I mean ask this question. It seems very cliche, but you've been in the game now for quite a while, and you've exited also very early in your life. But do you think this is something because you guys are not in the humanoid game, right? Where the hype is at the moment. You do industrial work, manufacturing, so really deploying robots, doing work that, well, yeah, things that could not be had been automated. But do you think that the not too far future is there will be new grounds that you're taking on?
Yeah, I think, one of our core beliefs is we'll do what makes sense to us, and we'll let investors do what they think makes sense. And we kind of saw that in the last wave. There was a period when the word on the street was like, hey, this you should have not built hardware because you're going so slow. And we're actually, you saw all these venture funds fund these like software only companies, mostly used AI to just locate objects, right? Uh, and a lot of those companies have now, that whole vintage has failed. And now it's like, hey, that was so genius. You built hardware. It's like, in some cases, the same people that said it was stupid. And I'm like, jeez. And I think that the humanoid thing, if you just think about it from first principles, and it's kind of wild because you've got first principles himself, Elon Musk, that's pushing this thing, of course. But it's like even in Elon's best estimate, legs are 13,000 plus dollars. And then, in my world, I see that a lot of jobs don't need legs. So if we're competing on a job and he's putting, let's say it's 1,000 robot opportunity, we see a lot of those actually, and he's going to put $13 million worth of legs on his quote, and I'm not going to have that. I'm just going to give them two arms that are stationary. Does a customer want to pay 13 million extra dollars? And then I think you can look at if you make a humanoid, and by the way, we designed a humanoid from scratch and actually hired some guys that designed humanoids at NASA, the Valkyrie and the Robonaut, kind of the original, some of the best I would roboticists in the world. And we designed a humanoid with them. And we realized that the number of unique parts is insanely high. The cost is so much higher than our current modular approach, where we have three wrist joints, for example, that are identical and they repeat. And so it's fewer unique parts. And then the range of motion is less. Compared to a humanoid, every part in that humanoid is unique in that arm. There's no reuse. And so we realized is, hey, if we build this, it's going to cost more. It's going to be lower performance. And the customer's going to have a lower ROI. It's going to have a shorter life because you have to overstress to like get it to be that close to the human form factor. You end up overstressing some things. And so it seems like this might be worse in almost every way. And so that's why we've come up with this modular approach where our joint, we have five different sizes of joint. They're all modular. We can deploy them as a single arm. It can be two arms. It can be stationary. It can be on a mobile base, or we can do a lift joint. And it gives you ultimately, like you can go three times higher than a human can reach. You can go three times faster than a human could do the job. It can last a lot longer than the humanoids. And again, if you don't need legs, we're not selling you legs. So you're gonna, it's gonna be, or if you only need one arm. So I just think this wins every day of the week. I think this might have been why Figure decided to pivot to the home market. And that's what you see if you look at their website after, things didn't work out with BMW. And so
I
uh
haven't been on the website for quite a while, but interesting. Continue, please.
yeah, yeah, I don't think many people notice the website really shifted at one point to the home. And uh I think that's why, because the ROI just isn't there. And I don't think it's going to be possible to compete against an approach like ours that and that's how we think about these problems. What's going to make the most sense for customers? And we focus on that. And I try not to worry about like you have to keep the company funded, but thankfully there's enough investors out there that really understand the space or are willing to do the work and think through the arguments to back up what makes the most sense. And so we look for those investors and don't worry about what everyone else is thinking.
Dude, that was a journey. Thanks for thanks for sharing. And I think for because I've seen your content and I've seen what you guys are doing, the Congress piece as well. I think was really refreshing to uh, because I talked to obviously I talked to a lot of people coming from academia, right? And you did your part in academia, but very early on. I mean, exiting at 22 is, I think I was working at McDonald's when I was 22. So there's there was quite some roller coaster, and I'm very happy that you gave me and the audience and those for listening and watching, yeah, so many insights on your story and what you guys are doing. I think we'll be hearing much more from you guys in the future. I can sense this. And I think just in the last 6 weeks, I had at least three people announcing their Series A. I think it was 40, I think it was 80, and I think it was something 30. So I'm thinking of, I mean, you don't need to raise money to be successful. We all know that raising money is the definitely not one of those things that count in this world. But I think your approach, being very customer focused and problem focused. I think you said it very very well. It will keep you in the game for the long run. So I wish you guys all the best and looking forward to see more from you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
for sharing. And I hope this is something every now and then I'm talking to the people who have been on the podcast. Some people sometimes reach out and said, I'm always focused in what I'm doing today and also planning the next few steps. So I don't have too much time to go back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but it's nice to visiting those moments every now and then to see, yeah, what an amazing journey that is.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and big fan of your work. So keep it up.
No, thanks. Then talk to you soon.
All right. Talk
Bye
soon.
bye.